So everybody, my name is Morten Ferstrand, and this is a jazz guitar lesson where we're going to talk about walking bass lines on the guitar, playing bass lines and chords at the same time. Tabs, link in the description, you might need that. We're going to cover quite a lot of stuff today. Seems to be a topic that a lot of people are interested in, so yeah, should be good. So walking bass lines in jazz. First talk about what that is. It's a bass line that is not staying on the root, typically the entire length of where the chords play, and it's different to walking bass lines are used a lot in blues as well, but often they're more like static ostinato parts, for example. Stuff like that, that's gonna be the same on any chord, or typical bass lines like that for bluesy stuff. On jazz, the bass lines tend to be more free and moving, very improvised, and that's gonna be when you play bass lines and chords at the same time. Your focus need to be on the bass line, so you're basically like improvising all the time. Hopefully you're following the soloist in some way, yeah. So starting point, we're just gonna keep playing chord notes, and I'm gonna give you a few strategies or like ways to get from one chord to the next that is really typical as a starting point, because we need, even though it's improvised, we need to kind of think about what we put out, right? We need to kind of drive the harmony going forward in the song some way. So thing I played on the start here, which we've been working on a little bit lately, is jazz blues in the key of A. So we're gonna use that, and find some ways to play walking bass line. So first, now we'll just start with the bass line, and think about chords later. So we have 1 bar of A, that's 4 beats. So we're gonna play 4 notes, going to 1 bar of D, 1 bar of A, and this is 7th chord, dominant 7th chords, A7, D7, A7, and then we have just 2 beats of E minor, 2 beats of A7, and then 2 bars of D. So check this out, the link in the description for tabs, maybe you're not so used to the jazz blues. So first way that we're gonna look at is just playing a scale-like approach, and that would be scale combined with chromatics, because as you'll see, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're gonna end up on the D on the 4th bar, 4th beat, and that's too soon. We need to end up, we play 4 beats before D. So what we're gonna do is this, right? Chromatic passing notes. And from D, we're gonna go back to A. Again, chromatic passing notes. So, you may notice that I'm playing D and C. This is not the A major scale, because a D dominant chord, we play the dominant 7th, flat 7. Chromatic passing note. So now we're gonna go all the way up to E. A typical way of doing this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then E on the 1st bar again. Now we have 2 beats of E minor, 2 beats of A7. So when chords change fast, that makes it kind of easy actually, because we have 1 note to play in between this, and typical would be like just on a chromatic approach note like this, right? Half note above A. Could do the same thing to D, chromatic approach note above. So going from A again, A, E, what we have so far is this. Okay, so now we have 2 bars of D. So we have to fill those with something. One typical movement that I like is just like this. You can do that. That's an entire bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're back to D. From D, scale, back to A. Okay, so let's repeat what we have so far. E minor, A, D, A. Yeah, so that's one approach, keeping it very scale-like. Next typical approach would be using chord notes, playing arpeggios. So starting from A, you need to of course know the arpeggios for A7. That will be. So we're gonna play. Stop here, chromatic down to D. 1, 2, 3, 4, D, and for D I wanna, instead of continuing up like this, we could do that, but soon it's gonna be, I mean, we need to probably stay a little bit low because we're playing bass, and this is not a bass, it's a guitar, so the deepest notes is what's gonna work best most of the time. So instead of playing arpeggio like this, I'm just moving these down 1 octave, right? So we have and from A going to E minor. If we end up on this, we could do that. And then E again, or we could go chromatic above E, which is nice as well. And again, from E to A, we just have 1 note in between, so or with a D again, 2 bars of D. For example, we can also use this figure, which lasts a whole bar. For example, yeah, let's continue with the last part of the blues form, which is 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, right? 2 bars of C sharp minor. Same thing probably. Just 1 note in between going to F sharp. B minor, scale up, or arpeggio. Or another thing that is nice is just using the 5th in between. And which brings me to the next topic that I wanted to talk about, is that as a starting point, having the first beat of each chord playing the root of the chord is good practice, but it's really nice to not be limited to doing that. For example, starting the first beat on the 3rd or the 5th, right? It makes the playing sound, it makes it all sounds a little bit more free, more jazz-like, instead of hammering down the chords. So going from B minor to E7 would be nice, for example, doing like this. Right, and that's B for 1 bar. And then on the E7 playing the 3rd on the first beat. Could do the same thing going back to A, C sharp in the bass, and then the 6th chord, F sharp, B minor to E. So So I hope that makes sense to you. Let me play that again. So on this A7 I'm playing the third first. Yeah, so that's a lot of probably a lot of work for you that you can try out playing bass lines. Scale approach with chromatics, arpeggio approach, and also using chromatics whenever you need it, and you know, like common figures, like for example this one we played, which is just playing on D but moving chromatically up and down, or just down one. For example, on D 2 bars, or right. So you have a lot of things to check out. Of course, you need to know the scales and arpeggios. So if you're not familiar with all this, kind of need to learn this from, you know, the basic skills of scales and arpeggios and harmony and stuff like that. You need to have a strong understanding and practical knowledge of that. If you don't, you know, mortenslessons.com, I have the complete jazz guitar course that's gonna bring you up to speed on everything. Yeah, so which brings us along to the next thing I want to talk about. Of course, the notes that you play are important. That's going to give kind of the harmony, color of the harmony. But the most important thing is that it swings, rhythm. So how you play the stuff is important. And one skill that I see is the first thing that is a challenge for students is to play chords and bass line at the same time, but having them feel like two different parts, right? Because they are really, it's the bass line and the chords are two different parts that we're playing on the same time. And it's hard on guitar because we do everything with the left hand right here. A piano player could play bass lines there and chords there. We can't do that. And so playing, the bass lines need to be legato, right? You don't play bass lines like this. And that's what typically happens when you play the chords staccato. So what you need to practice first of all is holding down the bass note and then being able to play chord notes short. You play long chord notes too, but for example, a rhythm like this, just a pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. The last note there needs to be short. And what typically happens is when you do that, you lift the bass note as well. So you practice keeping the bass note down and play, and the bass note is still ringing. Typically, what I see guitar players do when they play, start playing walking bass, is they play like this. Right, you play the first note and then the chord, which is a rhythm that you would play sometimes, but it sounds a little bit strange. Right, you want to be able to play on the beats and syncopate into the beats. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4. And typical rhythm figure like this. Oh. So that. Yeah. So pay attention to that. Let me show you how to play into the beat before the beat of 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Just doing that is probably a little bit hard if you haven't done it before. Yeah. What more? So now the chord I was playing was just like 3rd and 7th, right? So that's a simple way to start. These notes for basically you often you just have to grab whatever you can. But another thing that's nice when you're playing bass and chords at the same time, you can follow the bass line like closely with your chords. For example, on a figure like this, you could play, right? That sounds perfectly fine. Same thing here when you go on D, from D to A. It's basically just the A7 chord, but approaching a note below, following the bass line. You can really follow the bass line. I'm exaggerating. I'm not able to do it even, but you get the point, right? You have a lot of freedom with the chords you play, and you can really keep it simple. Just play the third and seventh. This is also part of the jazz guitar, the comping, basic comping course on, in my jazz course, playing just third and seventh of the chord. That's where jazz chords start. So if you're not familiar with that, you really need to be. Yeah. So also practicing with a metronome is a good idea. And when you do in jazz, you typically wanna have the metronome as playing 2 and 4, not all 4 beats, but 2 and 4. So that's also something probably need to practice a bit. So if you hear a beat like this, you probably will think, a lot of you will think 1, 2, 3, 4, but I'm gonna have it as 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's on 2 and 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Rushing a bit, so yeah, everybody needs some metronome playing. One more thing, one more trick to have up your sleeve is you don't always have to walk all the time. You can play 2 notes on 2 times on each note, which is a nice way to do it sometimes too. Also keeping the note. Right? Yeah, it's a nice little trick to have. Pedal notes, also nice to get from. So that was holding. You have a lot of freedom especially if you're copying alone. If you're copying a soloist, and you can really stretch things in a way that is hard to do when there's a bass player there. So yeah, obviously this is just scratching the surface of playing jazz, playing walking bass lines and all. But hopefully It's gonna help you get started. It's probably a lot that I should have mentioned that I forgot, but just ask in the comment section if you have any questions. I'll try to answer that. Yeah, have fun with it, and have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.